So, in the last segment of this series, I was talking about how the astronomers now are saying that there's about an 80% chance that our sun has a sister, brother, another part of a system. And we don't know, it may even be there may be another star altogether. It may be a three system for all we know, but we know there's an 80% chance that we have some other other sun or star-like system. That's another thing they're finding out. There's an awful lot of different kinds of stars. But anyway, what they postulate now is that there's a brown dwarf that is kind of a small glowing star, and now they also are announcing that around 80% of those small glowing brown dwarf stars, there's planets circulating. And not just planets, some of the planets have moons. So we're talking about the sun, another sun, and then it has maybe 7 or 8, 9 planets around that, or 8, whatever, and then around that there's some moons, and around that, who knows what, there's comets and whatever. There's a system, a really, really big system that we're involved with. We're born, we get educated and we know things, but the fact is that we're like a tiny speck, and our Earth is a tiny little planet going around this star, and this star's got another star circling it, and they're in some kind of a huge dynamic system, and for all we know, it may be 7 stars in a system. Now, getting back to the discussion of the cosmic situation in relation to our current thing. Now, we're born in this time, this is what it is, and for whatever reason, synchronicity or whatever, we are now getting to understand some of the ancient teachings and writings, and we've tracked their calendars and so on, and they all seem to be saying, well, there's just a lot of stories, okay? Now, fine. Question is there some reason practically and realistically, astronomically, in terms of our current understanding of our system, why there may be a real reason? And that means that if we start to realize that these guys were right and they were trying to tell us something, then we start looking at their cultures very differently. We have to. And now, I'm going to get into a timeline. One of the things I've done with research here is I've been looking into some of these, I read books and I watch things. And, I take notes. I say, well, something like in 15,000 BC, apparently one theory has that Tiwanaku was constructed. Okay, that's one thing. But next to that, there's the beginning of the Pleistocene extinctions and cosmic ray bombardments. Now you look at that, 15,000 BC. Now, I came across these things from different sources. And, I'm not like someone who believes everything. I just cross-reference. I keep seeing where the numbers come. And I'm looking at this thing, and then at 16,000 BC, it says ice minimum. Okay, 18,000 BC cave paintings, they estimate, in Zimbabwe. An ice maximum, the beginning of the Pleistocene extinctions, when the ice age started to end there, 15,000 BC, 17,000 years ago, roughly. Now, they're broad numbers. Now, we just start to narrow it down here. Now, you go back a little further here in the timeline, and I try to avoid going too far back. I'm really interested in why, what's happened with previous civilizations and who we are as human beings and how, what our relationship might be with other systems. Now, according to a show I saw on TV, that around 90,000 years ago, there was a green Sahara, evidence of high rainfall and big, huge, massive lakes. So really, really tropical, 90,000 years ago. Now, as far as what we understand, after around 100,000 BC, and I'm roughing it here, but somewhere in the 70,000 BC, somewhere around there, there's what we call the Cro-Magnon type of person or creature, whatever, and previous to that, there was like Neanderthal, and there were some other kinds of things that bones, that's what we call them. We don't know what they were, but they were something. And we didn't find any more of their bones after a certain point. Now, in 70,000 BC, Ice Age. Now, check this out. Around that time, the geologists say, around 70,000 BC, somewhere in that neighborhood, the Toba explosion in Malaysia, in that area. It was so huge and so massive on a scale, we just can't even comprehend it. It blew ash and stuff way up into China and devastated the whole Malaysian area, which some possibly, maybe there was a civilization there called Mu. Maybe there was something happening there. There was, people living in a very tropical paradise type of environment with the Ice Age, and then boom, and then an Ice Age happened. The sky darkened probably, it just threw the whole planet into some really deep, dark collapse. Now, if there was any civilization back there, I don't care how big they were, 70,000 BC, if they were, not spread out as much around the earth as we are, for example, perhaps, but still could have a vigorous population, something like what China has now, that could have totally gotten destroyed. There would be hardly anybody left except people who are living on islands, or they would have to start from scratch. Now, 70,000 years ago was a very, very long time. Now, here's a note. In 56,000 BC, the lesser ice maximum, and 62,000 BC, and 56,000 BC, a mild interlude. So, now 53,000 BC, settlers in Australia, from China, Indonesia. Okay, now they're recognizing it's something. There were settlers coming in that had made it from, remember, that's in the area where that big thing happened. And the large animal extinctions in Australia, a huge meteor crater in Arizona in 48,000 BC, roughly. Large animal extinctions. Okay, so there we go. We have two huge blowouts. One was a volcano in 70,000 BC, and then we have another big, huge thing with the crater in Arizona around 50,000 BC, somewhere in there, that definitely affected climate. Now, I got to go on to the next segment here shortly, but now according to this, they recognize seafaring and blade tools at 38,000 BC, 35,000 BC, cosmic ray bombardment, 35,000 BC, rock paintings, Australia, and 32,000 BC, the end of Neanderthal, roughly. These are rough dates that I've gathered from many sources, and kind of do a preface for what I'm getting into here a little closer to our own time. So I have to cut it off now because of the YouTube moment.